move something around the screen. I'm just going to do a couple of general slides and then run into the samples of ringing. One of the things that you're doing when you're ringing, you're actually trying to do a lot of different things at once. You're trying to count, to listen, to pull your rope. So actually what you're doing is multitasking. So one of the problems with ringing and trying to do everything perfectly, it's like trying to climb a mountain. You've got a huge number of things that you've got to do. But basically climbing a mountain is really just a series of small steps. So it helps to break the process of ringing down into, or learning, into a number of small steps and then gradually put them all together. And there's a concept known as transferable skills. And listening is one of those transferable skills. You don't actually need to practice your listening or develop your listening skills on the end of a bell rope. In fact, when you're trying to pull the rope, keep control of quite a few £100 of bell metal, it's probably better that you don't try and hone your listening skills at the same time. And one of the things about practicing is that if you practice a little and often, it will gradually become automatic. Yeah, so after a while, instead of having to think about it, you can keep more than one ball in the air. And then eventually, you'll be able to keep quite a few balls in the air without even thinking about it. So let's just move on then. So in terms of, at the moment, we're in lockdown, and then hopefully in a couple of months' time, we'll be working back down through the tiers. So what can you do now? So one of the things that you can do is practice at home. They're on a PC, a tablet, or a smartphone. There's quite a few applications around these days. One of the most popular is Able, which is also available for use not just on PCs, but if you've got a Mac or a smartphone, there are other versions called Mobile and Mable. A number of towers also use Virtual Belfry. That's fairly similar. It does similar things. I think actually the graphics on Virtual Belfry are better, and it's probably a little bit less functionality. So it's actually, I think, marginally easier to use. There's also a thing called Bell Tower, which is probably the opposite extreme. The graphics aren't as good, and it's got an awful lot of functionality in it. So it does take longer to get the hang of it. There's also a free version, which is called Bell Tutor. I mean, Able and Virtual Belfry cost about £25, £30, but you can download them over the internet straight to your PC. Bell Tutor, which is the cut down version of Bell Tower, is available free. There's also something that's been released recently called Ding. Ding's a bit more, again, fairly simple, and you can actually practice ringing at home with Ding because it's got a virtual ringer called Bob who will ring the other bells for you. There's also, I think Andy's mentioned this already, a couple of CDs and DVDs. The Whiting Society produce a book with a DVD called Come On Listen to It, which is £15 from the Whiting Society website. There's quite a lot of detail in the book on listening, and it also explains the various exercises that you can try. And then, as Andy referred to, there's two Central Council CDs. I don't know why they're priced differently. The first one is £8 and the second one is £9, and they can be purchased via the Central Council website. And there's an awful lot of samples of ringing to listen to. And virtual ringing, we're going to try a bit of virtual ringing next week. The most popular application is Ringing Room, which came out fairly early on in the pandemic, and that's really taken off. There's an awful lot of Ringing Room practices taking place up and down in the country, and there's quite a few towers now in W&P that are holding their own Ringing Room practices. I'll say a little bit about that at the end. Ding can also be used for virtual ringing. And there's also some applications called Discord and Muster. One of the problems with Ringing Room and Zoom is that you need to share the audio, and sometimes there can be a bit of a lag. So Muster and Discord are alternative ways there you can ringing, and particularly popular with handbell ringing. And there's also a piece of software, well, an application called Handbell Stadium, where you can see virtual handbell ringers. And a chap called Graham John has produced some e-bells which you can plug into your USB port to practice virtual handbell ringing. So there's an awful lot that's been developed over the last 9 months or so. So I'm just going to take you through the first of the listening exercises, and all I want to do in this one is for you just to listen to a sample of some perfect ringing. It's been recorded on Able, and what I want you to do is just practice counting to yourself, as Andy suggested, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and don't forget to include the hand stroke gap. On Able, there are some numbers which appear at the bottom of the screen, so that will help you count along. So if you want to, just look at, rather than looking at the ropes, just look at the numbers and count along to them.
Although Roger, if I could just chip in there, if you are really looking at honing your listening skills, then it's actually worth doing it without any visual aids.
Yeah.
Now you might want to use visual aids to start with, but if you really want to hone your listening skills and hone your counting, then try to do it without visual aids, because in the long term, that's actually a huge benefit.
Yeah, I mean, what I often do is get people to put a sheet of paper in front of the screen so they can't see it, and then take it away. So I've actually done that on some of the later exercises. You'll just get the sound, not the pictures. Okay, so this should start in a moment. Okay, hopefully everybody heard that. So that's what we're aiming for. But it's like climbing that mountain. It's not something that's going to be you'll be able to do straight away. It takes a lot of practice. So this time I'm going to move on. Now, I've actually recorded a piece of ringing on Able, and what you can do on Able is you can press the J key. You can do the same thing in Ringing Room, or you can press the space bar in applications like Virtual Belfry. So you can see how well I've done. This time, just count along again to the rhythm and focus this time on the tenor, which I recorded myself ringing manually. I know Andy doesn't like this, but one of the things that will happen is you'll see a bar appear under the rope, which goes red, amber, and green. I'd like to think that I could make everyone green, but I've not done that. But you'll see that depending on how far out it is, it goes amber or red. Okay, so this. Okay, so that's just told you a little bit about Able. one other thing I'd like to do with Able is just show you, Andy referred to earlier about how large an error you can detect with the human ear. So I've recorded 3 pieces of ringing on Able. And one of the things on Able, you can actually view a graphic of how well you've rung. And you can also play back the ringing afterwards. This time, just count along 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 again to the same piece. Sorry, I'm going to show you how to, first of all, the graphic. Right, so that just demonstrates the review striking function in Able. So now I'm going to move on to talk about the 3 exercises that we've done where we got different amounts of striking error. So this time just count along for yourselves, 1 to 6. This time just focus particularly on the 4th. Andy talked about emphasizing your bell. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gap. So focus on the 4th. And I'll just let you know this time we've adjusted it to ring late at backstroke. So that's what you're going to be listening out for. And the first time it's going to be 30% late, then 20% late, and finally 10% late. This is how you adjust the delay in Able.
Stand.
Okay, so I hope you heard that one quite clearly. Now we're going for 20%.
Stand.
Finally, 10%.
Stand.
Okay, we'll move on in a moment. Just if you look at the screen, you can see that the peel speed is 3 hours on these recordings, and that's the same for all of them. And the gap of the bell is about, between each bell is at that speed is about 1/3 of a second on 6 bells. So as Andy said, 10% of 1/3 of a second is measured in milliseconds. So a lot of people's act, even if you can only detect an error to 20%, you're still detecting errors of milliseconds. So just to move on, time for some audience participation. What I want you to do is to listen to this piece of ringing and tell me which bell is uneven. And at the end of the ringing, we'll let you unmute yourselves. Try and work out whether the bell which is uneven is too early. I mean, some people talk about it being early, or some people talk about it being fast. Okay, we can have an argument about whether it's fast or early later. Or is it too slow or late? And is it early or late at handstroke or backstroke? So listen carefully to the ringing, and then if you'd like to tell me in a moment or tell the others what you think the error is. Okay, and so the last thing is there error occurring on both strokes or just one stroke? So here we go. Okay, so is anybody brave enough to unmute themselves and tell us what they think the errors are?
Well, I thought it was the tenor.
Correct?
It's a tenor. It's a tenor and it's late.
On both strokes.
Yes,
Yeah.
you've got it.
Yes, you've done it.
Okay.
Okay.
That was about 30 seconds. Sorry, I didn't catch that.
So I didn't.
No. One other thing, if that's happening in the ringing, obviously the tenor could try and ring a bit closer on both strokes. But is there something else that the other ringers ought to be thinking about there?
Perhaps the treble could wait.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at. I mean, one of the things is that the tenor could be trying to tell the other ringers that they're going too close, too far.
Space
Yeah.
out the other bells a bit.
I mean, especially if you're trying to ring an even bell method, the tenor might not be comfortable at the pace that the other bells have set. I mean, bell ringing is very much a team activity. So you've got to learn to ring together as a team. And, you know, it's not just necessarily one bell making an adjustment. Okay, I'll move on to the second one, which is a little bit more sophisticated. So, sorry, just playing back what we did. So, okay, so I hope you'll agree that that was that the tenor was slow on both strokes. So now we'll move on to listening exercise number 4, which is slightly bit more sophisticated. So again, it's the same questions. Which bell is uneven? Is it too early or too late? Is it just hand stroke or backstroke, or is it both strokes? So here we go. Okay, who's brave enough this time?
It was the 3
Yes,
early on backstroke.
correct. Okay. What about hand stroke? What was the hand stroke like?
I thought it was okay.
Yes, okay. Catch question there. Okay, so the third needs to ring slower or wider at backstroke. Anybody got any other thoughts about it? It's quite a common thing to hear in towers. Why do you think they could be ringing too early at backstroke and all right at hand stroke?
Many reasons. Rope could be too short, the bell could be odd struck.
Yeah, it's the rope too short is often the thing in my experience. So it may be that if you're the conductor or tower captain, you say stand and get the ringer to stand on a box. I know it's protocol in some towers, particularly if you're visiting, not to adjust other people's ropes, but certainly try and sort that out before you go too far. Certainly, if you've got an error like that in the rounds, I'd sort it out before trying to ring call changes or methods, because it is just will spoil the rest of the ringing.
But just a word on that being, if it's odd struckness, if you've got to slow down the backstroke because the bell's odd struck, then remember that you also need to speed up the hand stroke a little bit.
Yes.
So although the hand stroke was striking in the right place, if you slow the backstroke, then the gap between the backstroke and the hand stroke pull needs to be adjusted as well.
So it's let out a bit of tail end and take in a bit of sally, isn't it? Catch the sally
Yeah.
an inch or two higher. Okay. So if we're ready, we'll move on to number 5. Sorry, that wasn't number 5. That was me forgetting to play back the results of exercise number 4. So this time number 5, and again it's the same questions. Which bell is it uneven? Are they too early or too late? Is it hand stroke or backstroke or both strokes? So moving on. Okay, we've got some brave souls who are going to say what's happening.
Number 5 is a bit quick.
Right, any other take it?
I
No.
would say it was the
Right.
four.
Do you want me to play it back again? Because this is where it starts getting tricky, doesn't it? Let's see if that will work. Okay, so
I have to agree. It's number 4, not number 5.
correct. Okay.
And it's late in one direction and early in the other.
Yes, it's 1 stroke's early and 1 stroke's late. Which ones?
I think it's the hand stroke is late.
Late.
Yes, that's right.
Backstroke early.
That's right. Okay. And you know, it's quite tricky if you're ringing the 5th. I think Andy talked about this earlier. If you're doing by rote sight, there's one thing, but when you're listening, it's not immediately obvious whether it's the bell in front of you is slow or whether you're too quick. So this is why it's important to do lots of practice. I mean, here we just got 1 bell on obviously hand stroke and backstroke out of position. But if you're ringing with real ringers, there could be several other bells that aren't in the right place. So it takes a lot of practice. So just to confirm that, I won't forget this time, I'll just play it back with the screen. Okay, we'll move on then to exercise number 6. I mean, as you can spend a lot of time practicing error and listening for errors. And the other thing to do is to listen to different pieces of ringing and start trying to pick out different bells and what they're doing. So one of the first things I want you to try is just in this piece of ringing, tell me how many bells are ringing. Could be 4, could be 5, 6, 8, 10, whatever. And then 1 bell at a time, just try and work out what they're ringing in. There's an argument to be had whether a sequence is a row or a change. I'd use the row rather than change. Change is a different.
I'm doing a test.
You turn your sound, that's it. So first of all, pick out how many bells are ringing and then listen, make sure the treble's leading, make sure the tenor's at the 6th place, and then try and work out what the bells in the middle are up to. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so has everybody heard enough? So how many bells are ringing?
6.
That's right.
That's right.
Has anybody worked
Has
out
anybody worked out
what order they're ringing?
order they're ringing?
Right, I think it was
I think it was
1, 3, 2,
Yeah, 2 and 3 had swapped.
4, 5, 6.
And then we'll see what, so it's 1, 3, 2. So hopefully, yeah. Okay, so 1, 3, 2, something, something, something.
1, 3, 2, 5, 4, 6.
Yeah.
Spot on. There we go. So just to confirm that.
Roger, can I just say, it would be no good looking at the screen because the bells aren't ringing in the right order anyway.
No, I think the only thing about the screen was the numbers on the bottom, which tell you what the row is, or the figures at the side.
All right, because you're looking at the roads, they're not ringing in right order.
No, and I think it's very difficult in the tower. I'd say almost impossible from just listening to pick out the row, because obviously if the sequence is changing all the time in a method, that's very difficult. You might be able to do it, or should be able to do it in call changes, because obviously if you're calling call changes, you need to make sure that the bells are pulling off or ringing in the right sequence. But that was just a step towards picking out. I mean, typically what you would do if you're listening to a method is you'd first of all work out whether it was an odd bell or an even bell method by listening for what the tenor's doing, then follow what the treble's doing as it works its way through. Is it a plain hunting or is it doing something else? And then perhaps once you've got sorted that out, you then listen to listen out for one of the inside bells to see if you could work out the line of the method. But this time I'm going to play you a second piece. So again, it's how many bells are ringing, and also what order are they ringing in the row. Okay. Okay, so do we have any brave people? That 8 fingers, that's
8 fingers, that's
8. Yeah.
any spotted the sequence?
spotted the sequence.
I thought they were ringing in rounds.
Did you? Let's just go back if I can. Obviously, if you're not speaking, just mute yourselves to avoid the feedback.
One, three,
1,
two,
3,
4,
2.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually 1, 3, 2, 5, 4, 7, 6, 8. It's a
And 5,
slightly
4.
out of rounds, but
I got 2 and 3.
yes, that's fine. I think at this, obviously, some of you were trying to introduce these things which are concepts which are quite new. I think if everybody spotted the whole row, they'd be doing pretty well. What we do now is just play that back again just to show you. So obviously don't look at the ropes, look at the numbers at the bottom or the numbers at the side. Okay, so I wasn't trying to catch you out there, but it's obviously quite difficult. It just shows you how much practice is important. The last piece of ringing is you can all rest now. I'm not going to ask for any feedback on it. I just want you to listen to some Devon call change ringing. I think it's a good example of what's possible. The Devon ringers, as Andy pointed out earlier, they don't ring with open hand stroke leads. So each row starts immediately after the previous one has finished. So it's in listening, it's quite difficult to work out which is hand stroke and backstroke, which is why we don't do it in method ringing. But one of the things about Devon call change ringing, there's a tradition that goes back several hundred years, and the tradition of Devon call change ringing, the emphasis is very much on performance. It's not on complexity. So they're not trying to push you on to ring more and more complex methods. It's all about the performance and the quality of the performance. So here it is. Okay, so you can see with the Devon call change ringing that I think Andy said earlier, if you don't have an open hand stroke lead, the ringing is slightly faster, and they tend to ring the bells just below the balance because they don't have to get the bells up to the balance to sort of plain hand or ring methods.
Roger,
Yes,
my eyes espy the rope around their wrists.
yes, you did. Again, they've almost, one of the traditions there is they actually ring the bells up or almost up, but they don't necessarily let the last coil out. So they're ringing just below the balance. And
But that's frowned upon when we're being taught.
well, there's an awful lot of rivalry between the Devon call change ringers and the scientific method ringers. That's as you say, it's frowned upon by all the scientific ringers. But there we go. I think the quality of the striking that comes out, if we could produce that in our method towers, I think it'd be really great. But I'm not too worried about it. They actually let the rope slide through their hands as well, don't they? There's quite a lot of clips of Devon call change ringing on YouTube, so that just wasn't a one-off. So I'd just like to finish by saying that next week and for a couple of weeks thereafter, we've got a ringing room practice set up if you'd like to join. It would be helpful to know who's coming. We've got about a dozen helpers who've signed up already, so we know that we've got enough experienced ringing room users to give people who've not run ringing room before to split people up into some breakout rooms. But obviously, if I've got an idea, I'll pull my hair out if we get 50 people, but obviously we can split people up. And in terms of the helpers, I'd like to give them the opportunity of disappearing, perhaps to practice some more advanced stuff. And the questionnaire gives people a series of options to choose from. I don't want the experienced ringing room users just to end up helping others all day or for the whole session. So, and we're going to split it up into a sort of 40-minute session, then have a quick coffee break, give people the chance to swap rooms, and then resume for another 40 minutes. So that's 10:15. If you're in the Alton district, it's the Alton district AGM next Saturday morning. So I don't wish to take people away from the Alton district AGM. I believe the Alton district, Judy, have been having regular fortnightly ringing room practices. So what we'll do is anybody who comes along and wants to come to the Guild one, if you're from the Alton district, we'll redirect you as long as we've got space in the Alton district ringing room session. And all you need to do is just go to the Guild website and look under the Guild education pages, and the details are on there, including the questionnaire to indicate what you'd like to do.